AdLib is the smartest way to activate programmatic. Built for expert traders, yet easy enough for any marketer. Launch across all top DSPs without contracts, overhead, or busy work. Schedule a free trial today and start maximizing ROAS with AdLib. Check out AdLib at getadlib.com. Welcome to Open Market, a podcast about building companies in the advertising industry. I'm Joe Zappa. I'm joined by Eric Franchi and Shiv Gupta. What's up, Shiv?
What's up, guys? How are you?
Shiv is joining us from the hotbed of innovation itself, Silicon Valley. And he went to an event recently and he was like, that shit is totally different. Adtech has nothing on these people. Shiv, how lucky were they and were you inspired?
So one day, Joe referred to himself as AI pilled. Shiv is like agentic pilled, and we couldn't get him to stop talking, so we just flipped it on. Shiv, so where did you go? What did you see? What are you thinking? How does this play into this Chrome thing you were screaming about yesterday?
Yeah, so I got invited to this agentic commerce event in San Francisco yesterday, and it was put on by Visa, which is a multi-$100 billion company, and a small company of 20 people called Skyfire. And it was all about how, all the kind of nuts and bolts that go into agentic commerce and all the different technology that's like behind the scenes, right? So companies that manage authentication of users, companies that manage authentication of agents, company that handle payment processing, the actual like LLMs that spin up the agents to conduct agentic commerce. There was actually a lady that did a demo from Consumer Reports, which was fascinating, because Consumer Reports has built all this agentic kind of capability into their platform. So anyways, it blew my mind. It was just like, not like an ad event at all. It was in, the hotbed of AI innovation, which is San Francisco. And the one thing that really stood out to me out of all of this crazy stuff was the panel was not moderated by like a schmo like me or like, random ad tech bloviator on LinkedIn. It was a CNBC tech reporter. And she was badass. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a different level. So anyways, that's the preamble.
All right. Well, I take offense to that because CNBC tech reporters obviously have nothing on asking LinkedIn bloviators. We are the sexy mouthpieces everyone wants to get in front of. And that's widely noted. But putting that aside, what do you think is the most important trend or thesis in ad tech right now, Shiv? Like you mentioned, obviously AI, agentic commerce is like a topic a lot of people are talking about, but you educate people on the space all the time. So what do you think are the most important things that are going on?
I mean, it's just, I'm going to be cliche and I'm going to say the same thing that everyone says, and I'm going to say it again and I'm going to triple down on it. AI is changing the whole world. AI is changing advertising fundamentally. It's changing the consumer experience. It's changing tech. And, it's interesting to me. I think like half the industry has its head in the sand about AI and half the industry is trying to like stay ahead of it and figure it out. And that's it. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen this from us at U of Digital. We're like going all in on training everybody about AI because that's where everything is going, right? So that is the thesis. Forget about commerce media. Forget about CTV. Forget about identity. Forget about walled gardens. Forget about like Trade Desk versus Magnite. Like no one cares about any of this stuff. AI is what matters. I am also AI pilled, Joe.
You are AI pilled.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
but I think all these things intersect, right? So it's funny. I'm giving a very U of Digital style talk to one of my clients in a few weeks. They're like bringing me in as like, because they're like they are in ad tech, but a lot of their people aren't super ad techy. So they're like bringing me in to give a little presentation of like, here are sort of the three major things going on in ad tech. And so the three buzzwords I immediately thought of were AI, performance, CTV, right? And so for like the AI slide, I'm grouping it into three buckets to try to help them sort of get an understanding of how that's playing out in ad tech, which are like customer experience, which is what Firsthand is doing, brand agents, chatbots, all that kind of stuff, targeting, measurement, and optimization, which would include TV scientific, right? With like optimizing CTV advertising as you're going, generative creative and like contextual ads, like what the open ads guys are doing, like a different creative for every impression, which like has to do with basically the next generation of contextual targeting, and then like the predictive audience targeting stuff that like Yobi and Permutive are doing. So 1, customer experience, 2, targeting, measurement, and optimization, and then 3, ad ops and workflow automation, which would be like agentic media buying, creative automation, campaign ops efficiency. But so to your point about like AI versus like CTV and performance, it's like obviously all these things are going to intersect because AI is going to be the kind of innovation engine that affects how CTV evolves, how commerce media evolves, etc.
Yeah, so I agree with everything you're saying. And I think all those points are really salient and relevant. I also think that we are sometimes missing the bigger point, right? Which is, how does AI change consumer attention? How does it change the consumer experience, right? And that will change advertising entirely, right? So, I'll give you a couple of examples, or I'll play this out a little bit for you. So first of all, I was back to the thing Eric just said. I was screaming about it on Twitter yesterday. It's like, we're all sitting here talking about Trade Desk and Kokai. Meanwhile, Gemini just got integrated into Chrome. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, Perplexity a couple months ago introduced Comet, right, which is an agentic browser. But that was cute. Like, not a lot of people use Perplexity. Like, whatever, it's fine. It's good. Good job, Perplexity. But Gemini being in Chrome is bringing agentic browsing to the masses, right? They're pushing it out to everybody now. And I think they're going to do it right. I think I've been really impressed with Google's AI push from a consumer standpoint in the last 6 months or a year. And I think they're going to do it right. And if they do it right, that changes how we use digital media, right? That changes how we shop. That changes how we browse. That changes the content we consume. That changes everything, right? And then because it changes how we do things as consumers, it changes where we pay attention, what we spend our time on, which then changes advertising, right? So if we play that out, I think it means maybe a few things. I'm speculating, but I think it means a few things. One is, I think, and this is coming from the agentic commerce thing I went to yesterday, agents will be shopping for us a lot more in the future, right? Agents will be going out and browsing products, not humans. And so what does that mean for lower funnel advertising? What does that mean for companies like Criteo, right? Or dynamic ads? I think it means a lot of that stuff is going to come under a lot of pressure, right? I don't think it's going to be as valuable anymore. It's going to be more about influencing agents with markup than it is going to be about influencing humans with banner ads, right? I also think because of that kind of revolution, I think the lower funnel of advertising fundamentally in the next 5 years is going to it's just going to become a different thing that maybe matters a lot less and becomes completely compressed, Eric, to the point you made, right? And it's going to become commoditized. All of it's going to just become AI-ified. And so I think we're going to, as marketers, as an industry, we're going to have to think more about moving up funnel. We're going to have to think more about TV. We're going to have to think more about where are users spending their time that's not clicking around, browsing things and buying things, right? So I think streaming audio is going to be huge. I think digital out of home is going to grow a lot because people are still going to be outside in physical worlds looking at ads. I think AR and VR hasn't had its moment yet, right? That's not because AR and VR isn't going to be a huge thing. AR and VR is going to be a massive thing. It's waiting for its moment, right? And I think AI accelerates that. I think advertising in AR and VR is going to be huge, right? So I think that's the 30,000 foot view.
Audience, Eric started squinting. He was with Shiv until he said AR and VR, and then he started squinting.
That was basically my line. Shiv, you had me violently until you said the VR word.
Dude, I'm telling you, in 10 years, everyone's going to be walking around with some kind of glasses on or, what do you call it? AR contacts or something.
Okay. There's to me, a hard line between walking around, with AR glasses and, kind of sitting at home, drooling on yourself for 14 hours a day with VR, which is what, some people thought 2025 might look like a few years ago. But broadly, I agree with you. And you raised some great points about how other mediums actually might get a boost because all this stuff ends up going the way of agents One question I have for you on an earlier point that you made, and then maybe we'll get into the meat of the podcast, but this has been like sick already. You said 50% of the industry seems to have their head in the sand. You're very interesting because you spend a lot of time with companies of all sizes, but particularly large companies. And not to put words in your mouth, like, are those the 50%, are they typically kind of like large legacy organizations? And why, given everything that you just pointed to and everything we're all talking about, could they ever have their heads in the sand at this moment?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, we work with a lot of big companies. That's our kind of like primary customer. And I think like when I say they have their heads in the sand, I mean it in a specific kind of way. So I would say like there are product people, there are like visionaries at all of these great companies, right? That's Meta, that's Amazon, that's, Google, et cetera. And they're building products a million miles an hour and they're doing a great job, I think. The problem is, and this is like my kind of hill that I always die on, is they leave their people out in the cold, right? And big companies in particular right now are leaving their people out in the cold, right? Like big tech companies, you go and talk to the rank and file at the most innovative AI companies in the industry, and they have no clue. Like they have no clue for a few reasons. One is the people in the ivory towers, the product people are innovating, but they don't think about how they bring all the people along for the ride. They don't enable them. They don't teach them. They don't like think about behavioral change and transformation across a broader organization, right? They expect people to kind of learn through osmosis and figure it out themselves. And that's always been the problem of our industry, of any tech industry, in my opinion. Like that's kind of why we exist. And so I'm seeing that right now in a massive way with AI. I think part of it, I like tweeted this the other day. I think part of it is a compliance issue and a IT issue. It's like, I'll talk to, again, rank and file at big companies, and they're like, well, my IT team only approved one or two tools, right? There's just an LLM I can use. And the LLM, no offense, like a lot of times like, oh, my LLM is Copilot and it sucks. And like, I can't really do much with that. And so I don't use it a lot. And if you're not like, I think Viant is a good kind of counterpoint to this, right? You got Tim and Chris out there like telling their employees to use everything. Obviously, they're building it into their tools. Like that's the kind of like AI native approach that companies need to have, but they don't. And so if you don't bring your people along for the product ride, especially with AI, I think that is a massive, massive problem that these guys are going to run into like really, really soon.
Yeah. I think there's also we've talked about it a lot, so I don't want to beat a dead horse, but like there is like a bit of there's just like an innate skepticism in this industry. Like we're talking about a lot of the time how it contrasts so much with the default Silicon Valley attitude, which is like, we're going to like secure like immortality by like 2030. And then like, ad tech people I think are very resistant to like claims of like new things and the ability to do stuff. And so I think that's like rampant in the industry. And also like, have you ever just like spoken to your like normal white collar friends about AI? Because like in my experience, a lot of people, like the people who tend to be really excited about AI are like the bloviators like us and like CEOs and founders. Like we're all totally sold on it and excited about it. And like rank and file are often just like, the CEO's like bloviating about this. I don't know. Like, how's it going to affect me? Like, is it going to create more work for me? Is it going to replace me? So, but you're in a good position to comment on that, Shiv, because you work with those people. So what are you seeing in the rank and file's attitude toward AI?
I think it's mixed. I think most people right now, like with any new technology, people have inertia, right? Rank and file folks have inertia. Humans, by nature, don't love change. And so I think that's like the majority of people, right, that are out there are kind of like, hey, I don't know about this. I'm hesitant to learn a new thing. I'm hesitant to change the way I work. And so I think that's the majority of people. Now, I mean, you guys also see the stats, right? Like ChatGPT is used by over, what is it? What's the last stat? I think I saw like, was it over 1 billion?
I think it's at least like 800 million MAUs.
If it's not there yet,
Yeah. So I think like, I don't think when I say majority, it's like 90% of people are AI resistant. I think it's maybe like 60 or 70 people, right, that are AI resistant, but 20 to 30% of the rank and file are like in it and trying it and using it. I mean, like my mom uses ChatGPT to write like letters and, like a silly speech or whatever, right? So I think there's a good amount of adoption for like a technology that is so nascent, that is so early, but there's still a lot of work to be done, right? Like there's a ton of work to be done. And I don't think that work happens just by like shipping new product, right? Like I think we fall into that trap too of just, hey, ship new product and people will come along for the ride. If you build, they will come. And I don't think that closes the gap.
So a lot of what you do, Shiv, at U of Digital is training up workforces, but I think in particular, sales teams are a big component of your work. I guess in general, how do you train up an ad tech sales team? Like, where do you see the gaps tend to be and what do you focus on? What's the methodology? And then maybe we can talk about AI specifically.
Yeah. So I think like, when I started this company, I was a salesperson, right? So I was a salesperson in this industry. I was at AOL for 10 years. I was a sales leader. I was at Criteo. And I started this company in 2018. And one thing I saw over and over and over again was the salespeople that only talked about their own product and that only kind of like could stick to their script of their deck were not doing nearly as well as the people that came in as industry thought leaders, right? The people that could kind of set the stage about the big picture, what's happening in the space, and then kind of position their solution in the context of the broader space. And that's for a few reasons, right? We are in a red ocean of an industry, right? Everyone's seen the crazy Lumascape. Like there's a bazillion companies and yeah, like your algorithm or your ID thing or, whatever acronym you're using to describe your mousetrap is cool, but also 10 other people are pitching the same kind of thing in this every week, right? To your customer. So how do you stick out? You stick out by bringing value to your customer by being a consultant, by being a thought leader, right? I think we like to talk about being consultative sellers in our space, but we miss the whole point of like, what does a consultative seller mean? Well, it's somebody that's a consultant on the industry, not just their own product, right? And so that's the value we're trying to provide to companies and to sales teams. And so, we solve for different types of use cases. Like different companies, I think, are at different points in their journey of helping their sales teams become that. So, like, for example, we may work with a company that has more of a legacy linear TV DNA, right? And we're trying to modernize that workforce and help them become streaming first and digital first, right? That may be one use case that we're solving for. Another use case may be, okay, well, take a DSP that's always been selling performance display forever, right? And now they're like, we are a CTV company. We launched CTV. Well, hey, guess what? CTV and TV is a whole new domain, right? New types of buyers, new language, new measurement, new technology. How are you going to kind of modernize your workforce or retrofit your workforce to talk about television, right? So that's another type of use case that we're solving for. And I think increasingly, every company is trying to become everything, right? We are now a commerce company. We are now a TV company. We are now a MarTech company. And as these companies kind of grow horizontally and vertically into new areas, they need to bring their people along for that ride. And that's where we come in.
How do you construct the knowledge base at U of Digital to do that? Right? Like, so maybe use case before the last one, which is, educating legacy TV buyers on selling to CTV, which is a different buyer set done different ways. How do you get that knowledge about like CTV and the CTV buyers, like really, really granular stuff, infused within U of Digital? Like who does that? How does it all work? It's like fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, Eric, like it's interesting, right? And I think most businesses will say this. The reason you do things in a certain way is because initially you just had to solve a problem, right? And so like, for example, our newsletter, which is popular, we started our original newsletter because people were like, oh, well, I use U of Digital to learn about the industry, but we can't keep up with the zeitgeist. So can you like help us with that? And we're like, okay, cool. We'll launch a newsletter. We'll solve that problem. And so the question you just asked is like, how do we get the knowledge? Very quickly in my U of Digital journey, I realized like, I don't know everything, right? Like, there's no way I know about all this stuff. I can't teach everybody about all this stuff. I started as like a solopreneur thing, but people started asking me to teach them about things I didn't know about. And I didn't feel qualified to get in front of an audience, like teach them about, let's say TV. TV is a great example. I was never a TV person. And so I started calling my friends. I was like, hey, friend from AOL that was like the TV guy or the mobile guy, I've got to run a training for an audience about CTV. Like, you got bandwidth. Like, I know you're great at speaking, and I know you're great at teaching this stuff, and you have the expertise. Will you do it? And so fast forward, we've been around for 8 years. We now have over 250 industry experts that have expertise in different areas. They sit in different geographies. They are buy side, sell side, agency side, consultancy side. And they are every single one of them is not only an expert in their field, they are passionate teachers, right? They are passionate explainers about the things they know. We vet people for that. Like, you can get tons of CTV people that know CTV, but not everyone is a good teacher, right? So we go out and find those people, like the needles in a haystack, that are good teachers as well. And that's where, like, that allows us to be extremely versatile and kind of flex into any kind of nook and cranny of the space. So we can bring like the best in the industry, and we can bring practitioner level knowledge to the learners.
Shiv, you were talking about what makes a great seller. And I loved that way of describing it, that it's not being siloed in your own company. It's understanding the broader industry context so that you can really consult. That also speaks to another trend defining modern selling, as I understand it, which is the blurring between sales and marketing. Like, if I were working at an Adtech company, obviously I sell to them, but if I were working at one and I had like a revenue number on my DAC, like, I would want to be sure that it's like I wasn't only depending on going to events or happy hours or meeting people in the city or whatever. Like, I would want to have a digital presence that's bringing in those people like all the time, right? And so that, like, when I see them at events, like, we already have a foundation of understanding, but also I'm introducing myself to a broad array of new people. And like, so obviously that's my usual shtick about the whole marketing thing, but I think it overlaps with your shtick, because it's like, you can't do what I just said. You can't take advantage of the way sales and marketing are blurring and have a digital presence that brings in deals if you are not thinking critically about the rest of the industry. If you're just at like Booster or Fat Tail and you're just coming in, you're just like talking about OMSs, like, no one really gives that much of a shit, right? Like, maybe the 5% of publishers who are going to buy an OMS this year care, but more broadly, if people don't care. So it takes that broader industry understanding to capitalize on how modern sales in particular works. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%. I think, like, you got to be part of the conversation, right, on social media. Like, I think also, we used to talk about this term, even when I was at like Criteo and AOL, we used to talk about social selling. Right? Like, social selling is very, very powerful. It gives you a lot more leverage, right? When you're out there, you're in the arena, right? You're talking to people. You're not only part of the dialogue, you're learning about what people are talking about. You're part of the zeitgeist. And I think, like, it just amplifies everything you can do on a one-to-one basis. So 100%, like, yeah, no disagreements from me on that. I think social selling is an under-discussed, underrated kind of skill to have in today's day and age.
Maybe one more question around the profile of the modern seller. We had Oren Hoffman on a couple of episodes ago. Yeah. And he talked about how the salesperson of today is like much different than the salesperson of yesteryear, right? Like, jeans parties and all that stuff is, basically extinct now, to my knowledge.
I don't even know what a jeans party is. What the F is that?
Oh, dude, come on, man. The good old jeans party? You take a bunch of agency young people to Soho, right? You like
no, don't reproach me, because you guys have these ancient references that I wasn't around for. I don't know how they were selling in Mesopotamia, guys.
Yo, you and I are the same age, man.
No, we're not.
Come on, dude.
What were you?
No, actually, no. You're right. I'm older tthan you. You're right. Yeah, you go to Soho. Everyone tries on some jeans. They pay, $300 per pair of, there's also sneakers parties, jeans parties. Oh. And then after you pay like $3,000 for a bunch of 25-year-olds to get the jeans, the next day you send an email and you say like, hey, can I get an add-on for $100,000 for this campaign? That's how it works.
That is like no more in the outcomes era, in the era that we're in. And now, like, salespeople need to be like not just marketers, but like product oriented. Are you seeing that? So you listen to the episode. I don't know if you agree or disagree with Oren's take. Just like the salesperson of today is different. Are you finding that that's the case, and the successful ones are different?
Yes and no. I think there's still a lot of salespeople that are a little dinosaur-y. And they are like going extinct a little bit faster, and there's less of them. I think this whole concept of the sales engineer, right? I think the sales engineer increasingly is now the salesperson. And if the salesperson cannot fit the profile of sales engineer, I think that's a problem. Now, listen, I think there's certain types of companies where you can get away with traditional salespeople, right? Let's say, for example, if you're slinging, traditional out-of-home media, and that's 95% of your business, and 5% of your business is digital out-of-home, and you have some specialists, and that's fine, they'll handle it. I think that's okay, right? You have some runway. But if you're out there selling a CDP or a DSP or any one of these more cutting edge technologies, your salespeople need to basically be what sales engineers were, 5 years ago, 7 years ago.
So say more about that. So what does that mean? If I'm a salesperson, I want to lean into that concept of not just being a salesperson, but a sales engineer. What capabilities do I need to have?
I mean, Eric, you probably saw this a million times, right? Salesperson goes to meeting, client asks slightly difficult technical question, salesperson responds with, "Let me get back to you on that. I'll get my product person to come to this call next time," or, whatever, right? That can't happen anymore. Because you have 10 other salespeople from the exact same type of company coming in and pitching that same customer on the same type of mousetrap, and they can answer the question. Right. And so one thing in sales, time kills deals. You can't have salespeople that can't move quickly, be responsive, answer questions on the fly. That kills your deals. I also will say, I'm talking about this more in a reactive way. There's also the proactive aspect of it, right? A good technical salesperson or a sales engineer actually paints the picture for the client and explains to them the nuances and the technicalities of what they're about to buy and the implications of what they're about to buy, the challenges that are hanging behind, different corners that they will need to be aware of. And then all of a sudden that client's like, "Oh my goodness, this is what I needed. I didn't understand this stuff," right? When I say salespeople don't know this stuff, guess what? Buyers know this stuff even less. And so that's why it's a huge opportunity and a challenge for salespeople to get ahead of that, right? And use it as a way to sell more effectively.
I'm really developing greater empathy for salespeople as we're talking, because I think it is really a really broad gamut of capabilities and knowledge that they need to bring to the table to compete. Because we're kind of identifying 3 different buckets, right? There's you've got to understand your product really well, including on a technical level. You have to understand the broader industry context, which is kind of a strategic analyst, marketer type skill set. And you still need those classic sellers capabilities of EQ, sort of understanding the person on the other side of the table, being a decent hang. So that's a lot of different stuff to put together. I wonder what your thought is on the broadening scope of the salesperson. And then also I wonder if that's introducing a broader range and outcomes, because I think nowadays I could see there being a huge gap between someone who has all those things, including maybe a digital presence, and someone who doesn't. The gap in performance, I think, would just be gigantic.
Yeah. So I think you nailed it, Joe, right? I view sales kind of enablement as 3 legs of a stool, right? So leg number 1 is sales ability, right? Can you be a strategic seller? Can you present? Do you know how to negotiate? Do you know how to manage multiple stakeholders, right? And so kind of the intangible soft skills that go along with being a great seller, that's kind of leg of stool number 1. Leg of stool number 2 is product knowledge. And that's you have to have that. You have to understand your product well. You have to be able to help the customer kind of navigate the value prop of your product effectively. You have to be able to answer questions, et cetera. The third leg of the stool is the leg that everyone has missed on, right? And it's why we exist. And the third leg of the stool is the industry knowledge. And I think what has happened in our industry, and honestly, all tech industries, right? Because I think society has inertia in general. The analogy I like to make is back in the 70s or, 80s or whatever, salespeople were selling basic stuff, right? Maybe you were in the paper industry and you're selling paper products, or you're in the natural gas industry, you're selling, natural gas products. Those industries didn't change that much, right? So once you were in them, you didn't need to constantly be learning about them, right? You knew it. You knew what it was all about. You understood what it meant. And so then it was about the sales skills and the product knowledge. That's it, right? Now, fast forward to 2020, we have all these technology industries, Adtech, MarTech, FinTech, energy tech, on and on. And these industries, as we know, are crazy fragmented and they have a crazy pace of change. And one thing we have missed, I think, as like corporate overlords in our industry is like, well, when you're in a modern tech industry, the pace of change is so fast. Even if you're in the space, you cannot know all the things you need to know just through osmosis, right? Just by going to conferences and talking to people. And so the third leg of the stool, I think, for great enablement is training these teams on what's happening in your domain, right? Become a domain expert. You're not going to learn it on your own, through your own devices. And so that's why we exist. I don't know if I answered your question. I just kind of pitched.
Oh, no, you did totally. You recasted it like very effectively. I like the way you broke it down. I also think like this is just such like, as you're talking, I'm like, this is such a huge opportunity for people who are like really motivated and like driven to learn, because just like, again, like we were talking about with AI and how resistant people are to change, like, sorry, most people not going to make it in that world. Like that's tough, but it's tough in a way that it's like, it's not impossible to fill the gaps, but you just need to be really motivated to like stay on top of shit, read what people are writing, like learn what the new things are. And if you are willing to do that, I think, the hardest part to teach might be the sales EQ type stuff. Like that kind of comes through experience and a mix of experience and aptitude, but the other stuff can be learned. And if like people take advantage of what you are doing and take advantage of all the great media that's out there in the industry, like they're going to crush it.
Well, I'm going to slightly disagree with you, Joe. I don't think you can rewire people for intellectual curiosity. What you're talking about is intellectual curiosity. So the desire to go out and be like intellectually stimulated and challenged by the industry you're in, like the bloviators, the us's and the R's and the stuff, all of us, we're stimulated by this stuff. We're interested in it. We want to understand the dynamics, the ins and the outs, want to talk about it. Again, the vast rank and file of the industry wants to go to work, do their job, go home and watch Netflix, right? And not think about this shit anymore. And so,
boring.
But here's the thing, like, I think that's okay. Right? You can do that. You can't rewire the rank and file of an industry to be intellectually curious about all this stuff. What you can do, right, is give them the tools, spark their interest in certain areas and ways, spoon feed them a little bit so they can do their jobs better, right?
Eric,
and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get...
Eric, how long into that answer did it take you to realize you were being sold? Because honestly, it took me a while to understand how he was going to work it back around. But like halfway through, I was like, he was like, no, but is it? Because it's totally true. It's like essentially what Shiv is saying is like, what I'm describing, yeah, that is really hard. And like probably 10% of people are going to be fucking maniacs who are like, it's like 9 p.m. on a Saturday. And they're like, I wonder what Shiv's saying on LinkedIn, which is definitely a thing that I'm doing because I'm a nerd. But it's like, yeah, you do need an alternative solution if you're a corporate overlord for the 90% of your workforce that's just like not going to do that.
Yeah. So yes, I was nodding my head. It's a non-video pod. I was nodding my head because it just resonates so much with my experience over time that there is, I don't know if it's the 10% or if it's the 5% or if it's the 2%. And maybe, sales, it might index a little bit more just because they're, kind of sometimes hungry go-getters that want every advantage. But it could just be a challenge asking people to keep up on this stuff because to Shiv's point, Netflix is more appealing. And then maybe B, they don't have it directly correlated with advancement in their job. But for that 1%, 2%, 5%, 10%, that's who the stars are, in my experience.
Yeah, we gotta shine a light on them. Let me ask you guys a question. How many people listen to Open Market?
Each episode gets hundreds, basically the 1% of the industry.
Every week on Marketecture. Maybe like 10x of what you guys get, maybe like a few thousand.
Yeah,
right?
thousands.
Yeah, and how many people are in the industry? Hundreds of thousands. Meanwhile, Ari's pod is probably the best pod. You guys are, you're up there too. But Ari's pod is probably the most informative, best pod in the industry. If people gave a shit, he would have way more listeners.
Eric would like to point out that he's also on that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, the common denominator is not that guy. Yo,
Eric's like, this is my side gig. It's not my fault Joe is an anchor effing weighing me down. Meanwhile, I'm soaring with Ari. But no, it's exactly right, right? Like there are, if there are 100,000 people who work in digital advertising in some way, like Ari's pod probably gets like, a couple thousand, 3,000, a listen. And then, this gets like 400. It's like, this is the problem. Like now I'll do the sale for you. As the corporate overlord, you're never going to get the majority of your workforce to tune into this shit. They just do not want to listen to me and Eric. Like we are grating to their ears. And so you need a way to spoon feed it to them. And that's what Shiv created.
I love listening to you guys. It's music to my ears. Music.
That's what I've heard about Eric's voice. Mine, I've never gotten that feedback, but other people say that about him. That's why he's on 2 pods.
I think you should start a 3rd pod, Eric.
I think I might.
He's probably already like devising one about like Brazilian jiu-jitsu or some shit.
I'm on a different path. What else we got for Shiv? I mean, here's one question that I'd love to ask. You are like a prolific marketer. You have email, social, all that stuff. Talk about your marketing approach, because it's top tier, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I mean, I'm going to say the same thing I said about the newsletter and the expert question you asked me. Honestly, I think to me, it's about 2 things. One is I wanted to learn, right? And so just like a salesperson that's selling, we talked about how good salespeople should be in the arena, right? They should be learning through the media and through social channels. Like when I started this company, I wanted to learn. And so I was like, okay, well, where are people talking about this stuff in an interesting way? It's on LinkedIn. It's on Twitter, right? And so I went and started learning. Like, I think that the problem, or I guess the good thing or the thing that I had that helped me is like, I'm also a talker, right? So like, not only did I want to listen, I wanted to talk and I wanted to share my opinions. And, that kind of organically happened. I didn't sit there and devise a plan. I didn't devise a plan, right? I didn't devise a marketing plan around any of this stuff. And so I think it sounds a little cliche, but I think you have to come at this. I think you have to come at marketing from a place of being genuine. Otherwise, it just falls flat. People can see through it. And so when I post, I'm not advising you to do this, anybody who's listening. When I post on LinkedIn, I'm not sitting there thinking about how I'm going to game the algorithm or when I'm going to post it or any of that stuff. I'm I have a thought that I think is interesting, that I think could add value to people that are doom scrolling on one of these social media platforms. I'm going to go post it, right? I care about this thing that I just thought of. So it's a little bit of a stream of consciousness, genuine approach to just being out there. The newsletter, honestly, the email list that we have, it's huge. It's 18,000 people and people love our newsletter. Honestly, again, we started that to solve a problem, right? So I think when you're doing things from a place of being genuine versus and this is the advice I always give entrepreneurs and business people, do not build a business, right? You're not in any of this stuff to build a business. You're in it to solve a problem. And then the business kind of falls into place, right? So I take that approach to everything, to marketing, to what I do on social media, to me building a newsletter. I'm always trying to solve a problem.
Yeah, sometimes in my sales process, someone will say something along the lines of oh, well, do I really need you to do this? And one of the things I tell them when they say this is my best clients do not 100% need me to do this, or they don't need me to do the entire thing for them. In other words, if you're the CEO of an ad tech company and you're I have no idea what I would say to the market, I probably can't save you. I can help, I can ideate, I can write for you, but you're not going to do nearly as well as a CEO where it's a collaboration and they do have some sense of what they would want to say to the industry. And then I can come in as a sort of genuine thought partner and writer and say, yeah, I've been talking to a dozen other CEOs in the industry. Here's my take on that. And here's what, X at X company might say about it. And we can kind of bat it back and forth. And then I can create it for them, polish it, etc. But to your point, Shiv, the best marketers in our industry and the best founder marketers are the ones who have a genuine desire to contribute something to the discussion. And then other people can sort of spur them to refine, to develop, to elaborate, whatever. But they are not like in their own silo completely. And I think that goes for anyone who wants to participate in marketing, though I would also argue everything you said about like salespeople, like the 90%, the scary thing is that's true about marketers too. And that's not great, because really a marketer's like entire job is to like participate in the discourse and like understand what people are talking about and how to insert their company. And that's why I have a business.
Yeah, you know what blows my mind is like when I meet a senior marketer at an ad tech company and I've just like never seen them on any social media. I'm just like, wait, what? You're the CMO of this ad tech company? Like, how? Like, you're not in the arena at all, you know? So yeah, I agree.
Shit, you've been doing this for almost 8 years now.
Yeah, 8 years.
What have you kind of learned along the way? And like, where is U of Digital going?
You know, I've learned a lot of things. I still have a lot left to learn. I mean, it's, you know, I've learned a ton about entrepreneurship, frankly, and building a business. I've learned a ton about people. I've learned a ton about training and education. Like I'm not actually like a academically trained trainer, right? And I just got into this business because I was passionate about teaching and I enjoyed it, right? So I've learned a ton about like instructional design and like what actually differentiates somebody from being a talker versus a teacher. And that stuff's been like mind blowing to me, right? And it matters so much in the work we do. And so those are some of the things, I mean, you know, we could spend a lot of time going into some of those lessons. So we are, I'm very excited about where we're going, right? Because, you know, we've talked a bunch on this pod about how, you know, we've been training the sales teams across the industry at all these big companies. We've been creating tons of value for them and it's awesome, right? But there are two things right now where we feel like we have to kind of meet the moment for the industry. So thing number one is we have to help the buy side of the ecosystem. So we are aggressively going after agencies and brands to help them learn, right? Like, yes, we want to help the sellers sell more effectively to the buyers and educate the buyers, but the buyers need to come along for the ride too, right? And so right now we're starting to work with brands like L'Oreal and Mattel and Disney and it's really exciting, right? State Farm, et cetera. And we're starting to teach them about all things ad tech, all things MarTech, data, commerce media, CTV. So that's extremely exciting for us. The second thing that we're doing, and I hope this came through already, is we are quadrupling down about training about AI, right? We want to own being the place where people go to learn about AI in marketing and advertising. We are going to own that. We're already doing it. And it's a huge need, right? Like when I think about our strategy is like, why do we exist? What's our vision? What's our mission? Why are we here? And we are here to help people, right? The humans in the industry do a better job with their careers, drive better outcomes for their companies, and help the industry make faster progress, right? And do better work. And how are we going to do that? Well, we have to meet the moment that the industry presents. The industry right now is presenting us this moment of AI, right? AI is going to change everything, like we talked about at the beginning. And we cannot leave people behind. And that's why U of Digital exists. I like tweeted this out recently, like we were destined to solve the AI people transformation problem that is happening right now in our industry and every industry, right? So you're going to see a lot more from us. We already have a bunch of AI products that are like taking off. We launched a new landing page yesterday, uofdigital.ai, with a bunch more kind of training products. We're going to be launching an AI learning subscription product, and we want humans to stay ahead of AI, right? Like, yes, people are going to lose jobs. That sucks. We want to get ahead of that. We want people to get ahead of that. And that's going to happen through enablement. So,
yeah. So both those points of strategic evolution make a ton of sense. One is moving beyond ad tech companies, which I know you guys have already done somewhat, but going deeper into the brand side where they obviously have legions of marketers who need to understand this stuff. And then two is capitalizing on the tailwind of AI, which represents a huge tailwind and a positive transformative force for the ad tech industry as a whole. And you guys are part of that and going to ride that wave, which is awesome.
Yeah, I'd add one thing to that. Last thing is part of the reason we're going to the buyers as well is we want to increase the connectivity between sellers and buyers through education and training, right? So I think there's a big gap in how the sell side educates their customers on their own products and on like kind of their new categories. So like, example, attention metrics, right? There's still a huge gap in how buyers like kind of understand and learn about attention metrics. Market Adelaide wants to make sure that everyone's learning about that, right? Can we help Mark do that more effectively? And yes, we can do that today, but we can do that even better if a bunch of brands are already learning through U of Digital, right? So we want to create that connectivity a little bit more between sellers and buyers through learning and development and training, and kind of be that objective third party that solves for that problem.
I can totally see that. God, there's probably so much opportunity for you to do things like in person, commingling of these groups. Shiv, you're the man. So much energy, so much like knowledge, optimism. We really appreciate you. If people want to learn more about you or about U of Digital, where should they go?
First thing, follow us on social media. We're always shouting from the rooftops about all the things we're doing. So follow us on LinkedIn, U of Digital. Follow us on X, Twitter. Follow me personally. I'm always out there, in the arena. And then, go to our website, www.uofdigital.com. Go to our new AI site, www.uofdigital.ai. And honestly, just DM me or email me. I'd love to talk.
He's in the arena, folks. You know where to find him. Shiv, thank you so much. Great to see you. And we'll see you on the interwebs, where we will continue to yell at you in the public square.
Sounds great. I look forward to it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.